I think that universities, not colleges necessarily, I think that universities do more harm than good now. And I'm very loath to say that, you know, because I've been part of the academy for 30 years and taught at great institutions. But the postmodern collectivist doctrine is so psychologically and politically toxic that I think that academia now does more harm than good. And it's not only what it teaches, which is the ideology, this ungrateful ideology which denies the existence of the individual. One of the things I might tell you, just so you know this, is that, you know, that you hear that there are debates about free speech on campus, about who should talk and who shouldn't. And people think that's what the debate is about who should talk and who shouldn't. But that's not what the debate is about. You're not even scraping the surface of the debate if that's what you think it's about. The debate on campus is about whether or not a human being has the capacity to communicate intelligibly as an individual or not. And the answer for the postmodernist collective types is that there is no such thing as an individual. And therefore, the very notion of free speech is absurd, because free speech is predicated on the idea that each of us have something to say that's ours, that's a consequence of our unique individuality, not our group identity or the multiplicity of our group identities, but something something that we have that speaks from our spirit, that can speak to the spirit of another and produce a negotiated peace. And that's what's being debated. The war that's going on philosophically or theologically in the campuses is far deeper than you think. The entire notion of the reality of the individual, which is, I think, also the entire notion of the idea that human beings are made in the image of God, most fundamentally. That is what's being attacked. It wasn't for nothing that Derrida called Western culture phallogocentric. Phallus for masculine, logos, for truth and courage, and centric for centric. That was a criticism from his perspective. The idea of the sovereignty of the individual. If you don't have the idea of the sovereignty of the individual, because there's no individual, there's no free speech. All you are is an avatar of your group interests. And if I'm not in your group, it's not in my interest to let you speak. There's nothing that we have to say to one another. There's nothing but power. It's a Hobbesian nightmare of group against group. And that's the postmodern doctrine. And so to call it appalling is to barely scrape the surface. It's an assault. It is truly an assault on the most fundamental principles by which the West is governed. It's not surface level philosophy. It goes all the way to the bottom. I mean, this is partly why I've been concentrating on religious themes in my lectures, let's say. Because the argument goes all the way down to first principles. Is the idea of the sovereignty of the individual correct? The Western answer is, it's the great discovery of the West. The Western answer is, that's the most fundamental truth. That is exactly what's under assault at the universities. The reason that the collectivist types hate me is because I've got their number. I know what they're up to.